Hello, hello. Give me 1 second. So, how's everyone doing? I just got to share this out so that people know that I am live. It's been a not hectic morning, but yet another weird energy type morning. And, it's just one of those things where we have to continue trucking along. Just keep trucking along. No matter what, you got to just keep going. All right. Let me share this out. Um, okay. I don't know if I shared it. Anyways, let me just close out the Facebook. Anyways, how are you guys doing? So I was wondering, like, what should I talk about today? What is it that we need to begin um really considering? What is it that continues to put us in positions where we feel as though life doesn't get any better? Things are just not going well for relationships, friendships, work partnerships, all of that. What is it? Well, this is a period where so many of us are becoming aware of all of the parasitic connections that we have. Now, parasites are my forte. Okay. That's where I really, really excel in the field of energetic work, recodement, standing scalar wave repatterning, all of that. Right. And because I'm so aware of all of these different ways in which parasitic things will try and infiltrate your life, we then begin to have this opportunity to understand exactly how they've affected our lives. So, quick question. What do you guys think parasitic connections are? What do you guys know them to be? Is it like you're invoking demonic things? Is it like, you're doing rituals? Is it what society and what religion teaches us is parasitic, is demonic? When we allow ourselves to really look at the concept of parasitic, I use the term parasitic because it's the very word that describes the behaviors. When you hear the word demonic, immediately that stigma, that programming, all of that comes into play, and you suddenly feel very, very helpless, very hopeless. You cannot do this, you cannot that. You're kind of just at the mercy of this greater being, right? This greater invisible being. And that's a thing, because you're not. You're not. It's not this helpless, hopeless type of situation. For me, things that are demonic in nature are things that try and usurp your personal sovereign power. Okay. Um, that's what demonics do. They try and override your personal power, your personal say, your sovereignty, your authority over yourself and your life. Now, with all the work that I've done with parasitic things, extractions, and basically just pioneering, trailblazing the entire field of parasitic extraction, um, I came to realize these things are just as afraid as we are, if not more. They're at a higher level of understanding. Okay. We're third dimensional beings, they're fourth dimensional beings. They're a dimension of understanding above human beings. That does not mean that they're of greater importance. No, that just means they're at a higher level of understanding. But here's the thing, their understanding is still rudimentary. Their understanding is still very, very limited. And what ends up happening, if you allow yourself, which I don't recommend it, but if you allow yourself to observe people's parasitic behaviors, the behaviors of parasitic beings, what you'll find is everything they do is based on their very skewed, very distorted view of survival. They're doing it to survive something, right? So, energetic parasites, they are aware of source, energy, all of that. They're aware of all of that, right? They're aware of the divine order of things. Now, they've taken their knowledge of their individuated existence and they've allowed that knowing to cut them off from source itself. We are all connected to source. It does not matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you practice. We're all just connected to this divine source of all consciousness. Now, this parasitic mindset, it causes them to believe that they are disconnected, they're unplugged. And because of this disconnect, it becomes this thing of, well, how will I survive? I'm going to have to feed. And hence all the parasitic latchings, things like that. That's why those things take place. Now, when you look at this in terms of human behavior, I am 100% sure you know at least one person in your life right now who is just so fear driven. They are so fear driven. And it's this thing of like, they need to do this, this, and this so that they can survive their situation, so they can get ahead. They're doing it for their stability. Like, you just don't understand. This have a right to do this. You know, it has to do with blah, 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 blah. And all these other excuses as to why their behaviors are justified. Why their attempt to override your right to decide things for yourself is justified. When you look at the world right now, it is a world divided. It is a world divided containing nations that within themselves are also divided. The division has become so profound, so widespread, that it's almost impossible to find any place where there's some type of unity. That's very rare. Okay, it's rare. This is one of those rare places, right? So now what we need to begin really exploring is the parasitic connections we have with other people. Parasites don't necessarily just infect you. Anyone who's difficult to breach, a parasite will use people in your life, either strangers who have access to you, maybe at work, maybe as you're just running errands, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a family member. It's said that every family has at least one organic portal in it. Organic portals are basically empty vessels. They're very good at mimicry. They're very good at repeating the things that they hear in order to better assimilate into the environment that they're attempting to be a part of. Organic portals have a tendency to be individuals who lack empathy, lack genuine empathy. They can mimic your empathy. Okay. They can pretend to be more like you and say the same things that you say in order to appear as though they have empathy. Do they really have empathy? Not really. Not really. It depends on the environment that they're in. A lot of the parasitic connections that we have go way below, they fly below radar. Okay. It's hard for you to pick up immediately just how parasitic this connection is. Things have to happen first. Even if your intuition is telling you this is something wrong, this is something parasitic, this is something that you should not be a part of, this is something that is not healthy for you, what do empaths do? What have you done when your intuition has told you to steer clear of a specific individual? Did you listen to your intuition? Was it something where your intuition told you, and then you were like, oh my gosh, why am I like this? Why am I so mean? Why am I so this? Why am I so that? But really, are you mean? Or do you just not have the appropriate amount of life experience yet to help you understand that the need to trust your intuition is elevated during those periods? A lot of the times, what ends up happening when I personally go through periods like that, previously I used to go through this entire process of, oh my God, I am so mean. Why am I such a bitch? Why am I so antisocial? Why am I this? Why am I that? As though I'm the issue. A lot of empaths, this is what we do. We speak to ourselves as though we are the issue. We would rather blame ourselves and accuse ourselves of just the ugliest things before we can just accept, like, you know what? I don't necessarily think you're a bad person, but my intuition is telling me I need to steer clear of you. What is so bad about that? What is so bad about, you know what? I'm going to assume that you are a good person, but I don't know if you're good for me. I'm going to need to leave you alone. There's nothing bad about that. There's nothing malicious in that. There's nothing that is degrading someone else. There's nothing that is condemning another person. Yet we consistently treat ourselves as though we are this judge, jury, and executioner just because we're like, okay, this doesn't feel right. I need to walk away. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel right. So I'm just going to walk away. Society has programmed us. Society itself has programmed us to accept, to protect parasitic connections. Parasitic connections will exploit your empathy, okay? Either intentionally or not so intentionally. They will exploit your empathy. Parasitic connections drain you. Energetic vampires are parasitic connections. Do you have that friend or that family member who consistently comes to you and they kind of just unload all of their problems on you? And it's not that they're coming to you because they trust you. This is something completely different. Because some people might be like, but isn't that what friendships are? No, that is not what friendships are. Friendships are not where one person consistently comes to you, unloads all of their problems, but you can't do that with them. See the difference there? These are people who you can't go and do the same thing that they're doing. You can't go to them and be like, hey, I'm having a rough day. There's things going on and I just kind of needed to lean on you today, or whatever it is people say, right? They're very quick to be like, well, I'm busy right now. Can I call you later? Or, well, it's always the same thing. Like, girl, you just got to do something about it. But when they come to you, it can be the same problem over and over and over. And no matter how patient you are, no matter how much you provide support, love, a sanctuary, basically, what ends up happening? They don't listen to what you have to say. You're expected to simply just let them continue talking. Excuse me, let them continue unloading a lot of that toxicity. And then when they're done, you feel exhausted. You feel borderline as though you're getting sick. And they feel better. They've gotten a hit of your energy, and now it's time for them to go. How many of us have experienced this? How many of us know people who we really cringe, like literally cringe, when we know we have to interact with them, but we don't want to be a bitch, right? But is it really being mean? Are you really being that bitch? It seems society has taught us, um, this primarily uh, applies to the ladies. Society teaches you that if you have at least some bare minimum of standards, with friendships, with relationships, with anything really, any type of standards, um, you're somehow too much. Your expectations are too high. Um, you think you're better than everyone. You're a bitch, but are you? That's such a parasitic teaching, this gaslighting you into believing the way you're experiencing the maltreatment that you're receiving is somehow your fault, is somehow something that you are obligated, just obligated to deal with. I promise you that you're not. I promise you, you're not obligated to do anything. What I've noticed, people with parasitic intentions, parasitic behaviors, people who are under parasitic influence, they were going to talk caca about you anyways. You can give and give and give and give and give some more. You can completely deplete yourself, pull out another loan in order to give. It's not going to be enough. These are people who are like bottomless pits of receiving. As much as you're going to give, they are more than willing to receive, and they'll ask for more. That's a parasitic connection. When someone cannot even acknowledge how much you have already done in that connection. Say you're having some sort of conflict, right? Say you're having conflict, and you're finally finding your voice and using your voice. um, you're expressing all of these things that need to be expressed. Like, I feel as though this is not a mutually beneficial friendship anymore. I feel as though I'm just consistently, like, you expect so much from me and you don't reciprocate how much I give. Of course, they're going to be like, oh, so this is transactional. You're just doing for me just so you can have. No, it's not transactional. Do you feel it's transactional? Is it a transactional thing for you to consistently be present when they're experiencing hardship, emotional hardship? You're there to listen. You're there to provide a place for them to go to if, say, they're in a relationship and they got kicked out or whatever, right? And they stay at your place. When they don't have enough, you give. Is it a transactional thing for you to just kind of want for them to be able to listen when you're having a rough day? Like, that's transactional? I don't think that's transactional. I think that's bare minimum. I think you've been conditioned to receive bare minimum for so long, and then they reduced it. And now that you're asking for just the bare minimum to be given back to you, they're like, you're too much. Are you too much? Is that a transactional thing? I don't feel like that's transactional. I feel like you're in a parasitic connection. one that simply seeks to feed off of you. You're not here to be fed on. Going without is not going to help feed someone else. For many years, I had many parasitic connections, right? I had quite a few people who were interested in being in my presence because of what they could benefit from. That was a type of dynamic that I established. I absolutely take accountability for that. I take accountability for allowing people to have access to me in that way, and for also encouraging it. That came from a place of insecurity for me. I felt during that period of my life that if I gave enough, I'd be able to basically buy my way into someone's list of priorities. You can't do that. You're either a priority or you're not. You can't do and say enough to get on that list. They either put you there or they don't. It comes from a place of insecurity when you operate in that way. How do I know this? Because that's the way I was operating for a while, several years. And what happened? What happened when I became so depleted and I had nothing left to overgive? I was attacked. I was cyberbullied. Did I deserve that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, what needed to happen? Did I need to just speak my truth and set boundaries and, we could all be friends again? They just didn't know. No, you have to kind of just see people for who they are. You can't love them into wholeness. You can't. You'll never be able to love someone in such a way that they will be another person, the person you want them to be. That goal, that falls under the umbrella of parasitic behavior, where you're trying to override someone else's free will. Yes, your intention is good, but as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So now is a perfect time as we're exiting, where Mercury's about to go direct. We're about to enter into that final shadow period of Mercury. This is the period where a lot of things that you've hidden from yourself is rising up to the surface, right? This is the period where you can begin really looking at, what connections do I have that are parasitic? What do I need to do about this? Not all parasitic connections can be severed, at least not immediately. If someone at work is parasitic and you have to do work together, you can't just sever that. You'll probably lose your job. Right? You'll probably lose your job. When the parasitic connection that you have is with a spouse, are you sure you want to get that divorce? Is that really the solution? We don't know. But you can't make life choices based on one 5-minute portion of a live stream that some stranger broadcast. You can't do that. You have to allow this period to be the very thing that gives you the space, the time, the courage, the opportunity to begin assessing your life, to begin assessing the connections that you have. A lot of the parasitic connections will go out of their way to avoid being identified as parasitic, as toxic, as energetic vampires. What's been your experience? What has your experience been with parasitic people? Have you found that it's easy to have conversations with them? Have you found that it is, you can openly speak about what your concerns are and how their behaviors have affected you? Have you found that they have the willingness, the ability to listen to your concerns? Or have you found that's just one of those things where, those are not the type of conversations we can have because you don't want to have it. So we can't have it. So I'm just going to have to, I don't know, deal with it. Or it also can be that very common unbalanced empath type of reaction of, but I love them. I love them so much and they just need help. Like, I see how good of a person they are. And they had a rough childhood. They got traumatized as a teen. They this and they that and all of these reasons to justify, not just explain, but justify the severity of their behaviors, right? Gaze says quarrels come out of nowhere. Energy draining too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's these things of like, where is their attitude coming from? It's literally out of nowhere. Like, why? Why are you being this way? And you can't ask them that. Rainbow Flame says they can also be very good at pretending to listen. Yes. Yes. Listen just enough to be able to say what needs to be said to keep you in the pocket. That's what I've realized as well. Kitty Claw says it goes in one ear and out the other. Yep. Yep. Gaze says they also do not listen. It's their way only. Yeah. Because these are individuals, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm speaking strictly on my observations because I've had so many parasitic connections. These are people who, even though it's their way only, they might be so well versed in manipulative tactics that they don't make that bold statement of it has to be my way. Instead, you're punished if you don't anticipate what their way is and do it that way. That's hard. That's really, really hard to navigate because then, as an empath, you're like, but they're not bad because I'm the one doing it. But why are you doing it? Were you made to feel like if you didn't do it, that you wouldn't be loved? Or are you made to feel as though if this, if that, there's this negative consequence? So then, really, are you the one choosing to do it? Or are you already picking up on the negative consequences, the punishment that you would receive, the love that would be withheld? Ooh, that got me right in the chest. Oh my gosh. Mm. Manjeet says, no, it's exhausting. They wouldn't understand that type of conversation. Not worth discussing that topic. So if they wouldn't understand that type of conversation and it's not worth discussing things that are important to you, excuse me, what place do they have in your life? Why are they in your life? And this is like a rhetorical question. It's not specifically to Manjeet. It's just like, why would we have them around? Why would we allow this to continue in our life? I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I really, really don't. Leanne says, I can quite honestly say that I've never had a relationship where I could be my true self, with conversations were always one sided. Mm. Are you reaching a place now, Leanne, where um, you feel like, well, okay, with that comment, I'm not going to load this with my own. Are you at a place now where you're having certain feelings about certain types of relationships, and how are you going to move forward from that? How are you going to act upon this realization that you're having? I distance because Melissa A says I distance because they were exhausting to be around. Yeah, it is so hard. It's so hard if you're consistently needing to watch what you say. You're consistently needing to do this and that and overgive and be overly present. And, you have to answer every single phone call, because if you don't, then, now it's like, what are you going to have to deal with if you don't answer it like within the time frame they want, like you're answering it, but it's not fast enough. I recently had someone who I reconnected with. We had lost touch for a while, and I reconnected with them, and like couldn't understand why I began to feel the way I did, and I realized, oh my gosh, like what the heck is this? What did this become? Um, this is a connection that consisted of me overgiving the entire history, right? Just me consistently overgiving, which that's okay. I chose that. But circling back around, I'm beginning to realize that that's what I had done through the whole history. And now it's like, well, not now, but recently, I noticed like you expect me to legit answer your message like within minutes. Like I know you haven't been around for a while, but I'm working all day. I'm not on Messenger all day. I can't just drop everything I'm doing to cater to you and your questions. And it became this reality of like, whoa, oh wow, did I convince myself to view this as something mutually beneficial, like a true, genuine, balanced friendship? Did I coerce myself into that? Because now I'm kind of feeling like I did. All those years ago, I feel like I did. And now that I'm no longer willing to play a role, now that I'm no longer willing to overgive and be overly present and overly this and overly that, now that I have standards and am learning to balance my life and all of my boundaries, now I'm starting to really truly see the gravity of what I had with that person. Again, they're not a bad person. It's just not mutually beneficial. That's not a friendship. At this point, I really only want mutually beneficial connections. When I say mutually beneficial, I'm not talking about transactional. I'm not talking about, well, I only want to talk to you if I'm going to benefit from it, because I give you a lot, so you need to get. No, that's transactional, right? I'm talking about connections where I can be myself, you can be yourself, we can celebrate each other, we can have space away from each other and understand there's no issue. You don't have to answer my messages right away. You don't, I only want people who are healthy for me now. And just because I deem you as unhealthy for me does not mean I'm saying you're a bad person. It means you're not healthy for me personally. So parasitic connections can be with a person who is actually a really good person, just not a good person for you. There's a difference there. There's an absolute difference there. And we can't fall into this trap of like, well, if I say you're unhealthy for me, then you're going to think that I think you're a bad person. You cannot control what they think. For example, you have a friend that's very insecure. Okay? This is just an example. You have a friend very insecure, and they consistently need you to kind of like stroke their ego. You have to consistently compliment them, consistently this, you have to consistently that. You have to be like, oh my God, you are so pretty. You are so this, so that. And just so happens one of these days, you're too busy to do that. Mm. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, did I do something wrong? Like, what did I do? How come you didn't message this morning? Oh my God, are you pulling away? And it's like, bro, I just kind of need to live, you know? I kind of need to do stuff. I need to get work done. No, I don't think you're suddenly ugly. I literally am just, I'm busy today. I'm busy today. But see, you're not allowed to be busy because you're only allowed to do what they need. Is that you being a mean person? Actually, yes. You're being mean. Not in the way you think, though. You're being mean to yourself. You're being mean to yourself. You deserve to be as kind to yourself as you are to other people. You deserve that level of peace, that type of love. Don't choose to consciously be parasitic to yourself. Let's see. Alexandra says they engage in arguments just to get your attention. Yep. I've had people in my life in the past who um, they only ever message me when there's issues. They're having issues with someone else. And I realize a lot of our connection had to do with them trying to bond by talking caca about people that they know I have an issue with. Because I won't just talk crap about people. Like, I have to actually have a personal issue with you, or I got nothing to say. There's just, if I don't know you, I don't know you. I'm not gonna like jump on the bandwagon and talk caca about you. But these are people who they'll make sure that it's someone that they know I already have an issue with, and then they'll talk caca about them because then they know like, oh, she'll join me in this. You know, it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I don't know if that's the saying, but something along those lines, like that. Be careful of those type of people. I promise you, they're going to do the same thing to you at some point. So Leanne says, because I did ask the question, she says, this is what I'm constantly working on now. There are some relationships that I won't put energy into anymore. I've started asking to have deeper conversations with those I care about. Ooh, I love it. I love it. Yes. The fact that you're working on it right now is powerful. It's not only powerful after you've mastered something. The process of working on the very thing that you're struggling to get a better grasp on, to better implement into your life. That's powerful. It's powerful. It really, really is. And giving yourself credit as you're in that process is so important because this is how you continue your own self healing, self realization, self actualization, self activation. She also says, if I matter enough to the ones I love, they will want to get to know me. At least I can hope that where I put my energy, good things will flow. Where you put your energy is exactly where it will flow. Whether it's good or it's bad, it's all in how you choose to see it, how you choose to experience whatever it is you're needing to experience. And the only thing that I want to add to that, Leanne, she says, if I matter enough to the ones I love, they will want to get to know me. Be careful about hurting your feelings with that. Okay. Because sometimes the ones we love don't want to get to know us. They're only interested in keeping us in that same exact pattern that we've been in, that same exact relationship dynamic. And that can be very, very painful when we come to that realization that, they're not trying to get to know us. Why is that? It's not necessarily because they don't love you. Oftentimes, it's more that they want to keep you the same person that they've known you to be because it's scary watching you become someone else. What if you realize they're not good enough for you when you change? That's often a motivator for them to keep you the same. That's often the very thing, very logic, very fear that's used to try and basically trap you into remaining the same person. It's not necessarily that they're intentionally malicious. I want to make that very clear. It's just the connection is parasitic. They want to override your divine blueprint. They want to override your divine timeline and the way you're meant to develop as is dictated by your soul. No one else can dictate that, just you and your soul. Not even you can stop your growth. You can delay it, you can complicate it, you can make it much more painful than it actually has to be to learn, but you cannot stop it. Well, Emmy, what about the people who never grow and never learn? Oh, no, they grow. They learn. They just choose to remain in the same behavioral patterns because that's where they're comfortable. Don't get it twisted. Their awareness elevates, it expands. They just choose to ignore it. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. Queen of Hearts says, some are so childish, entitled, others are narcissistic and emotionally unavailable. I can't put my energy into a potential. Boom! Right there. Right there. That sentence right there. I can't put my energy into a potential. Ooh. If they don't truly want to listen and grow, I gotta go. Yep. Amen. Amen to that. Amun Ra to that. She also says, we're just in different places on our journeys. I won't sacrifice myself and my peace and joy. And that was the most beautiful part that I realized. The most powerful, most beautiful, most liberating thing. This realization that I don't have to sacrifice myself, my peace, and my joy. No more. I will not be your willing sacrifice. Excuse me. No more. Um, let's see. Gaze says, this Mercury retrograde, I notice that those I have let go of are rallying other people I know to bring their anger through. Ooh, that's parasitic. That's literally, that is a Trojan. That is a parasitic situation that I have called a Trojan. They use other people to bridge the gap. If they can no longer access you, they will rally the people who do have access to you. This happens on an energetic level. This happens on a social level. Mm-hmm. There was a person that was super, super, super toxic to me. Well, they're toxic, period. They're just toxic, period. Right. And they lost their ability to contact me. They lost their access to me. So what did they do? Mm-hmm. They started trying to get good with people who do have access to me. It's so parasitic. It's ridiculous. It's so parasitic. Like, no, no. And people will think like, you can't tell anyone how to behave and how to act and this and yada, 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 yada. So that person went to someone that is close to me, managed to find a way to get into the house, and literally, legit, literally stayed there waiting for me to come home. Now, I personally believe I cannot tell people who to hang out with and who to not hang out with, but I have specific standards. I just do. And I'm not going to tell you who with, but I will tell you I'm not coming home. I'm not coming home. I don't think so. I'm going to be living somewhere else. I'm not joking. I'm going to live somewhere else. Thank you. Farewell. Never coming back. My space is so sacred to me that the moment someone who is uninvited, like it might be dramatic, it kind of sort of, but like it's appropriate for me. The moment someone who is not in alignment with the sacredness of my space is allowed into that space is tainted forever. I will never feel safe there again. And the only solution for me is to move. I'm so not joking. The only possible way to rectify that is to move. Mm-mm. Nope. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. We have to have some level of standard, right? Now, granted, my standard is a little, excessive for the average person, but if I'm publicly visible and a random person knows where I live, someone that I do not trust, no, that's a deal breaker. No, that's an absolute deal breaker. My children live with me. No, 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 no. And people who are parasitic in their connection with you, they have no problem violating your boundaries. None. Absolutely no problem. There was no second thought to it. None. Like, none. This individual that violated the sacredness of the home that I live in, um, they even had the audacity, to converse about me for quite some time as they were waiting for me to come home. This is disgusting. It's just so disgusting. I have standards. It's okay for me to have standards. My standards are not based in my perception that I deserve more than someone else. My standards are so deeply rooted in what I know and feel is about my safety, the sacredness of my space. I have a right to be angry about that. You have a right to be angry when people violate the sacred safety of your sacred space, whether it's just in your mind, whether it's in your heart and feelings, whether it's in the environment that you live in. A violation is a violation is a violation. And anyone who unintentionally violates it, because sometimes people don't know, right? If they violate that and you inform them, they're apologetic. They don't like, well, why are you tripping? I'm not tripping. You tripping. Let me tone it down before I start saying fricatives. Leanne says, you're so right. That dynamic is set in stone for some of my loved ones. I have finally learned that I can shine over here and let them be loved and appreciated from afar. Yeah, if it's like family, like biological family that's like this, if they're parasitic in their behaviors, it's not necessarily that you have to completely disown them. You can keep loving them quietly from afar, or if you're really good at boundaries, you can still have them in your life and just not let them in. I'm not good with boundaries. I'm just not. I'm not good with boundaries, and if I let you in, it's like you're just all the way in or you're all the way out. There's no in between. There's no in between with me. How many of you guys struggle with boundaries in that way where there's no in between? You're either like, I'm all loved up on you, or you're excommunicated. because of the fact that I can be honest with myself regarding my lack of ability to maintain boundaries. I have to give myself permission to function in this way. I have a hard time saying no. It's crazy. I know people have this perception of me that I'm some badass that, like I put you in your place and yada yada yada. Y'all, I'm a fractured person. In my real life connections, I'm a fractured person. I'm very sensitive. And I don't have boundaries. I say yes to everything, literally. And so, because I know I'm like that, I'm just like, okay, you don't get to be a part of my life. Or you gotta ask my husband. Because I literally don't know how to say no. I just don't. It's hard. It's hard. By the time I say no to you, you about to be cut out. I had enough. you know? So that's a lot of my problems, and that's why I struggle with parasitic connections. I'm making a lot of progress. What I'm realizing during this Mercury retrograde cycle is that I'm now able to, like, hey, um, this is my need, and I totally understand if it upsets you, but this is kind of just my need, and if that upsets you, you're free to cut me off. You're free to cut me off. Chop chop. You can cut me off. You go do it. You can beat me to it. It's okay. It's okay. I'm perfectly fine if you're the one um cuts me off this time, because it's not like I have to beat you to it. You know, it's not that I don't have to always be the one to do the cutting off, but this is my little expectation, okay? And here's the thing, you guys. How many of you have such a small speck of an expectation, yet you still feel so bad? I mean, is that an empath thing? Y'all help me learn right now, really quick, please. Teach me, teach me. I don't know if that's an empath thing or is just like an Emmie is being ridiculous thing, because I will give, and then like my expectation is just don't disturb my peace, Don't bring drama into my life. Don't start problems with me. Don't start arguments with me. I don't always have to be right. Most of the time I won't even talk. Just, I can be your bestest friend ever, but just don't disturb my peace. Like, let me be peaceful in my life. And for some people, that's like I'm asking for too much. For some people, that's like, oh my God, I cannot believe you. And I'm just like, what? What you huh? You can't believe what? And I'm confused, like, what did I say? Did I say something? Did I was I thinking out loud? What did I say? Quote me really quick, because I don't know how the conversation went from there to here. Like, I'm kind of lost right now. What happened? And that's how a lot of my toxic conversations go. Because I'm suddenly like, wait, what? What just happened here? I did something? What did I do? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's because um I suck at reading social cues. How many of you guys struggle with reading social cues? Like, but I don't know. I don't know. Um, let's see. So Christy K, same way. Can't say no, girlfriend. What are we gonna do? What are we going to do? Oh my goodness. I don't know what we're supposed to do. Queen of Hearts says, I haven't felt safe since I separated from my ex. Gives me anxiety. I can feel his presence around sometimes. I know he's watching. Ooh, 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 that's hard. Does anyone have any thoughts that they want to share with Queen of Hearts? Maybe someone can comment something that might give her that necessary 1 degree shift in her perception for herself. And that might empower her. That might make her feel more safe. Leanne says, it's too difficult for me. Did you guys hear that? What the heck was that? Leanne says, the aliens have arrived. Michael just told me the aliens have arrived. He's joking. He's totally joking. Leanne says, it's too difficult for me boundaries. I end up beating myself up the firmer the boundary. Mm-hmm. She says, I feel like a me. You know, one of the ways that I've been working on that, like feeling like a meanie, is I do still feel like a meanie when I set boundaries. And then I totally, obviously joking, I'm like, it's sexy. People love it when I mean it's sexy. Yeah. And then I laugh. And then I'm kind of like, well, that's just kind of how it has to be. It's just kind of how it has to be, you know? Oh, okay. Y'all, how about this question? You got me stuttering already. So here's a legitimate question. What if someone finds you like so ridiculously attractive, right? They're very like attracted to you in a romantic way. And they're using that as a reason, excuse me, as to why they should not be held accountable for violating your space. Like, what are your thoughts on that? For me personally, that's still a parasitic connection. But how would you handle that? How would you handle that? Matthew says, I've been saying no a lot lately. I feel my boundaries be touched, and I'm like a fire burning the violator's face. Nice. It's only been lately. That's a start. And who knows? It might be something that you don't continue, but who knows? Who knows? Let's see. Yes, Patty. Yes. Mahalo. Let's see. Moonrock says, I can talk to people, but sometimes I'm always like, did I say the right thing? Or is it the proper response? It might also be anxiety. Maybe. But I think sometimes anxiety comes from our experience, our life experience of being immersed in an environment that extremely is toxic. That's a very parasitic connection, you know, when that's how, like, for example, if that's how we grow up, because that's how I grew up, uh, it's something that's like, did I say something wrong? Is this something that, was it my fault? Did I start an issue? And oftentimes, no, no. One of the things that really empowered me in this part of my journey is the absolute unwavering knowing that I don't start things. Now, that's not to say I don't end things. Okay. Okay. Pull both hands back. I end things. Oh, we go fight. Oh my gosh. No, really. It's one of those things where I know myself to the degree that I don't start drama, but when I've had enough, absolutely I'll go out of my way to end it. It's always something that's difficult for me to decide. It's not always at the detriment of the other person. Oftentimes, um, I'll just walk away quietly, and then they end up wilding out. But that's on them. That's on them. Like, I really don't care who talks caca about me at this point. I really don't care. I don't care. I have a lot of care left in me, like a lot. And the reason I have a lot of care left in me, and it's a very healthy type of caring, is because I will care only about the things that will help to grow me and my environment in a peaceful way. Things that are nonsensical drama, things that are born of parasitic connections with other human beings, I'm good. I'm just so good off that. Moonrock says, from a potential partner, I expect them to be extra careful with me because I'm looking at everything they do. Yeah. Do you guys feel that that's a healthy type of perspective? Or do you feel like that's a trauma response? Because I do the same thing, Moonrock. I do the same thing. I'm extra cautious with anyone who I'm even considering to allow into my life in that way. I like to make everyone, as much as I possibly can, feel as comfortable as they possibly could feel with me. Um, but to actually let you into my life, that's hard. I'm going to be looking at everything you say and do. I'm going to be looking at the energy. I'm going to be looking at your integrity. I'm going to be looking at everything for a prolonged period for years on end before I'm like, all right, it's been like 5 years and you haven't done anything. I guess. But that's my trauma response. You know what I mean? That's what my traumas have caused me to be like. I'm not just an end product of trauma, but it definitely has affected me. Let's see. Let's see. Ooh, Patty. At 77, I am so blunt most times. Hardly anyone ever violates my space without advance permission. Boom. I feel like that applies to everyone, regardless of age. I feel like that applies to everyone. You'll find that in some way, shape, or form, someone has misconstrued something you have said or not done in response to them as advance permission to be parasitic in their approach. No, no. No, no, we can't be giving people this advance permission. I call it passive permission because you're not actively telling them they have permission to do this or that. Um, it's something that is passively communicated. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I'm saying. Mobile MBZ specialist says, would rather have the other person feel violated because of the boundaries I set rather than beat myself up and wind up the victim because I didn't. See? Words of wisdom. Now, it's that's impossible for me to do. That is impossible for me to do. I've been trying, like really putting effort into allowing myself to explore that potentiality. Um, I would say I'm making some progress. I would say I'm making some progress. And part of the way that I explore it is by just like, no, no, you're offended. Too bad. Okay, I have to go. Quietly cry in private. I have to go. I must go. Um, Ooh, yo, daddy's pissed. Okay. Queen of Hearts says, if someone is pressing me because of attraction, I will clarify. If they can't respect my position, it becomes uncomfortable and I will choose to walk away. Now, what if you've already walked away? What if you've already walked away? You know what I mean? Like some people will identify you as someone they have some sort of soul connection with. Ooh, now we're getting deep into it. What if they identify you as someone they have a soul connection with, like a quote unquote twin flame? What if they identify you as a twin? And they're like, oh, it's just the runner type of dynamic. And, I just need to chase you more. That I need to chase you more. What do you do then? How do you address that type of parasitic connection? Oh my gosh. Christy K says, I always think whatever I said, if people take it the good way or a negative way, it's in how they perceive it, which is true. Because it doesn't matter how you say it as much as how they receive it. How they receive it, even if it's said in a whisper, is what will greatly determine, all of that stuff, all of that. Um, okay, let's see. When you put your foot down, Kitty Claus says, when you put your foot down and keep your boundaries up, you're painted as a BITC. It's a biznatural. A biznatural. Especially in a work environment when you consider men who are in charge are respected, but women in position are viewed as a bitch. That's the other part of her comment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Unfortunately, a woman who is assertive um, is often viewed as a bitch. So when I was a teen, when I was like 18, I worked security, right? All 100 pounds of me was a security guard. And I remember having this coworker, and he was like this big beast of a man. He's like, I don't know, like 6'3" or something like that. And he's a cop too, and he's just working there part-time. And we became friends, and he he used to tease me of like, what if they pick you up? I was like, they don't pick me up. You're not allowed to do that. And he's like, a lot of people look at you here, right? And I still distinctly remember this conversation. It really, really stuck with me. He was about to go up the escalator, and he says to me, because I wasn't going up the escalator, I had to go to a different part of the mall. So he's going up the escalator. He turns around, he strokes his beard. He's like, 17, because that was my badge number. 17, it's better to have a reputation as a bitch than to have people F with you. What? What? And I totally like, something just kind of clicked in my head. Oh, I have permission to be a bitch here? And so I was. Because that conversation, the reason that conversation was being had between me and my coworker was I was patrolling the mall by myself. It's during the afternoon, and I was in a part of the mall that really had not too many stores. It didn't have much foot traffic going there. So it's like an empty part of the mall, basically. And right before this conversation, this large group of males kind of like approached me. And mind you, I'm literally by myself, all 100 pounds of me, and completely unarmed. And what ended up happening was one of the males, he had a belt with him. I don't know why, but he had a belt with him, and it was folded in half, and he snapped it like this. You know how they do that? They're like that. He snapped it like really close to my face, and he said he was going to tie me up. And I was like, what? Yeah, he said he was going to tie me up. And then they all started laughing, and they were all like circle around me. And I was like, I want to effing see you try. And I got serious. For a second, I got serious. Like, I want to effing see you try. And then I got on the radio, and I was like, this 17, I'm about to go 242. I was willing to fight. I wasn't joking. I was willing to fight, because it's like, you literally going to try and tie me up. We about to fight. And they heard that, and immediately they all were like, where are you at? Because I'm tiny, right? I was literally tiny. And they were like, all on the radio yelling, like, where are you at? I was too busy now. Now I'm being verbally aggressive to this group of males by myself. So I wasn't answering the radio anymore. Like my logic left. I should have told them where I was at. So if I was picked up and taken out of the mall, they would know exactly where to go, right? And the guys all left. You know, they all left the mall. They didn't do anything to me. But and then I got on the radio and it's like, oh, it's fine. They're all leaving. I told them the exit that I was at. And then I was called into the office and it was this huge thing of like, you are so small. Anyone could pick you up and carry you out of the mall. And I was like, whatever. You know, like to me, I know what I'm capable of. I don't think I'm badass like that, but I know you're not just going to pick me up and carry me out. That's going to be a huge effing scene. Like, hell no. And it was this thing of why did I allow it to even get that far? I wasn't blaming myself because their behavior was extremely inappropriate. But why did I allow it to get that far? Because as someone who is conditioned by society to accept and support parasitic connections, I felt I didn't have a right to make it known that this was a dangerous situation. Because people, my coworkers, this and that, whoever, would see it as like I'm incompetent, incapable, and that I'm just being dramatic because that's how society tells me speaking your needs is. Like you're being dramatic. You're making problems where there's no problems. And that's so far from the truth. So that coworker of mine, after all of us were excused, I got yelled at. After all of us were excused, he's like, come walk with me real quick, you know, because he was a lot older. And that's what he was saying. And I was like, oh, so I could be a bitch. And from that point on, I absolutely was. Absolutely. You look at me wrong. I don't feel right around you. I'm saying something. And it got to the point where when people saw me, because I was kicking people out of the mall left and right. Like at that point, you're breaking rules, you have to leave. You one time, and if you are disrespectful in your approach to me, I'm kicking you out. Yep, you're banned. You're out. And after a certain point, it became this thing of people who went to the mall, if they were there for BS reasons, just loiter. If they see that I'm working, they're leaving. They don't even want to bother. From that point on, no one messed with me because I gave myself permission to create a boundary and enforce the freaking heck out of it. That taught me a lot. I learned a lot. And even though I learned a lot, I learned about boundaries and how to enforce them with simple energy. And I wasn't yelling at people. I wasn't yelling at people. In real life, I was a very soft-spoken person. At that time, very soft-spoken. Yet they heard everything that I had to say. When I say it with no emotion, very matter of fact, and my energy is what booms that truth. Like there will be consequences. I'm not threatening you. I'm letting you know. My energy is letting you know. I'm not going to take none of your stuff. I'm just not. I'm not. And when you begin to embody that type of energy, people who are parasitic will become very, very turned off to it. Very, very turned off by it. They'll forget what their objective was because now they're like, I got to put effort into it. Yeah, and you're still probably going to fail because I've given myself permission to not give you permission. And I think that's what we probably have to take away from this conversation. When it comes to parasitic connections, it requires you giving permission. You have to give permission in some way, shape, or form. You have to give some type of permission for them to be able to continue to connect and feed off of you the way they have been. Parasitic connections are not just things that are excuse me, energetic in nature. It's not just like, oh, someone is possessed and, no. A parasitic connection is parasitic, period. Before we go, let's define parasitic. Resulting from infestation by a parasite, or habitually relying on or exploiting others. Sponging, freeloading. Ooh, damn. The truth to that, the sponging off of you, the freeloading off of you. God. And this final comment, Katie Ann, it's easier to establish boundaries from day one, because if you don't, then it's harder to establish or go back to that line later. It's a lot easier to establish something from the start than to have nothing established and work to undo what happens after that. It's very difficult to do that. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult, especially with family, especially with people who have known you for a very, very long time. That friend of mine that I had lost touch with, we had established a different type of dynamic back then, a different type than is able to be established now. I'm not going to drop everything I'm doing to answer every single last one of your messages. Your issues, your struggles, they are yours. When I have time in my day, I can then choose whether or not I will spend that little free time that I have to counsel and comfort you, or to spend it with my children and husband. It's my choice, and you have to honor it. You have to honor it either with your compliance, your understanding, or your absence. You pick. Don't be scared of the people you lose the moment you begin to have some sense of boundaries, some sense of healthy expectations of how people should approach you, how much people are entitled to you. Be healthy with yourself. The only way you can establish and sustain internal peace long term is by establishing boundaries, either for yourself or for other people or for both. I think the more sensitive the empath, the more those boundaries have to be established and regularly reassessed on both ends. On both ends. I realize now there are some people in my life who don't need to be on the outer side of that fence. Oh, the other side of that outer fence. That they actually have earned a rightful place closer to my core, closer to that center point within me. It's okay. It's okay to, quote unquote, lose people. These are not losses. These are people who are no longer around because, guess what? They can no longer sponge off of you. So, if you'd like to continue this conversation with me and you're not yet a member of the Soul Sanctuary podcast membership, you can sign up on my website, thesoulsanctuary.love. We're going to continue this conversation. For all of you who are members, please catch me on either of the two platforms that you're currently using. I'm going to set up all the links right now. We're going to continue this conversation and we're going to go real nitty gritty, real deep into this. Be ready to share your experiences with me. I'm ready to share mine with you. So, guys, please give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed or interacted with the video, the recording, podcast, whatever it is, wherever you're viewing me or listening to me, please do so right now. Please spread this out. I know social media is still currently shadow banning me in my work because I got a mouthpiece. We're going to override that, though. Together, we can absolutely override the shadow ban. Out of the shadow and into the light. Please share this out. from the deepest depths of my heart's oceans. I love you guys very much.